Hey everyone, my name is Olaf and today I will teach you how to make this exact animation in Blender 2.8 in Eevee. As always, it's going to be quick and easy, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start off by adding the ocean modifier to the default cube. So click Add Modifier and then add the ocean modifier. And let's repeat the animation both on the X and Y axis. So set it to 2 and 2 for both the X and Y axis. And then we will animate the water. So we're going to change the time value. So let's start off with 1. And then press I to keyframe. And then go to the end frame. And then set the time value to 250 divided by 30, which is the frame rate, plus 1 because we started with 1. So type in 9.33 and then press I to keyframe. And when we play the animation, you can see that the animation speed is not linear. So the next step of the tutorial is to go into the graph editor and set the interpolation to linear. So graph editor and then press T and set it to linear. And as you can see, the speed is now constant when we play the animation. The next step of the tutorial is to increase the spatial size. And by increasing the spatial size, we're not just increasing the size of the simulation, but the actual scale and complexity of the simulation, which is very important. And then we're going to increase the resolution as well, which adds additional polygons to the simulation. And then let's increase the size of the waves. And then we're going to decrease the wind velocity value. So let's set it to 10. And as you can see, the simulation looks a lot better with a lower wind velocity value. So let's go into the materials for the ocean. And then let's set the surface to glossy and set the roughness to 0. And in order to get some proper lighting for the ocean, let's add an environment texture in the world settings. So go to the world settings. And then instead of using the color, use the environment texture. Then click open. And you can find the environment texture on my website, which is in the link below. Or you can find it in the Blender folder. It actually comes with the Blender 2.8 download. So just go to 2.8 and then select the Sunrise HDR Underworld. Or you can just go to my website and download the file. The link is in the description. Okay, so back to Blender. Let's open the image. And when we go into rendered view, you can see the background image and the glossy shader reflecting the background image. And then let's go into the render settings. And let's start off by increasing the number of samples both for the render and the viewport. So let's set it to 100, which increases the quality of the render. And then let's also turn on screen space reflections. The next step of this tutorial is to set up the sun. So select the light and then go into the light settings, change it into a sun, and then set the strength to 2, set the specular to 0.05, and then let's set the angle to 5 degrees. And by decreasing these values, we get some slight sun glitter, which looks great in the final render. I'm also going to rotate and grab the sun, so press G to grab and R to rotate. And I'm rotating the sun towards the camera, which we will set up now. So press numpad 0 to look through the camera. And then press N and go to view. And then lock the camera to view. And then select the camera and increase the end value for the camera, which increases the range of the camera. And then let's go backwards using the scroll wheel on your mouse. And make sure that the sun is pointing in the direction of the camera. Okay. And then let's unlock the camera to view. I also recommend testing out some different frames to make sure that everything is within the frame of the camera throughout the whole animation. Okay, and you can also hide the overlay, which hides the grid and the sun, for example. And then let's go into the ocean modifier. And if you want to, you can increase the resolution even more. This depends on how fast your computer is, but you can set it to 40, and you can even set it to 50. Keep in mind that at higher values, the increase in rendering time is almost exponential. So just test out some different resolutions and do some test renders, and then render out the whole animation. So you can also increase the scale of the waves, but for this tutorial and for the final animation, I'm just going to set it to 4 because I think that looks more realistic. Okay, so now it's finally time to set up the final render. So go to Solid View and then go to the output settings, and then let's start off by increasing the frame rate to 30 FPS. And then we need an output folder. So select a folder on your computer and then create a new folder. Give the folder a name and then select the folder and then give the animation a name. I'm just going to call it Tut. And then we're going to render them out as PNGs, and then you can put them together later as an animation. Okay, so let's do a test render. Set the display mode to the image editor and then make a test render. And after a minute of rendering, I got this image, which means that the final animation will take 250 minutes to render. If it takes too long, you should probably decrease the resolution for the ocean simulation. Okay, so now we can render the whole animation. So make the final adjustments to the scene. And I think this looks okay. So let's render the whole animation. So just go to render. And then render animation. And that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll post more Blender 2.8 tutorials very soon. So thank you guys for watching, and subscribe.